For over 400 years, Earth lay silent. The blue planet that once roared through the galaxy with war, music, science, and fire lay in darkness, abandoned, isolated, and nearly wiped from the galactic map. With humanity gone, the rest of the universe felt a relief. They called it a mercy. Some said Earth had destroyed itself, others that humanity had evolved into something else entirely. But the truth lies buried beneath the dust and rubble, beneath the scorched skies and shattered moons of a planet that refused to die. And now, something was awakening. Deep beneath the Andes, in an ancient vault surrounded by decaying metal and forgotten AI, a heartbeat returned. A pulse of machine and human beat at once. The pulse traveled through broken cables and dormant servers to a core illuminated by cold blue light. The Guardian had awakened. At first, he couldn't remember his own name. All he remembered was pain, a deep, aching sadness heavy like old bones in his chest. He opened his eyes slowly, eyelids parted from centuries of sleep. The ceiling was cracked. Vines forced their way in, wrapping around the rusted steel. Nature had claimed the world, but not him. The Guardian had awoke from the cradle that had kept him alive through time. His joints crackled with unnatural stiffness, more like metal than flesh. Now he was part of humanity's last remaining defense project, still unimplemented. Project SDIX, Yielded Xenocide Monitoring Terminal. He had volunteered to become a weapon Earth would never use unless it had no other choice. Well, that choice was made long ago. A staticky voice rang out, drowning out the stale air. Subject 0, confirm awareness, confirm alertness. He didn't answer. Not immediately. Memories hit him like a freight train. War, fire, Orion's siege, the Council of Nine declaring Earth too dangerous to leave alone. And then finally there was a great silence as all the orbital defense systems went offline at once. Someone had betrayed them, someone from the inside. Complaint confirmed, he finally said, his voice deep and serene, almost robotic. Good, the AI replied. The threat level had reached Omega Black. The forces of the Galactic Council were closing in. They were unaware that Earth was being reactivated. The terms of their mission were survival, defense, and retribution. He clenched his fists. Something stirred deep within him, something old and angry, not just survival, not just defense, but retribution. Outside, the stars burned coldly. Somewhere far from Earth, in the heart of Trigonum Sector, a council fleet of 17 ships drifted toward what they believed to be nothing more than a dead planet. The admiral aboard his flagship, Aurochs 7, grinned as he looked over an old mission file. Humanity, he sneered. They always thought they were special, but in the end they faded away like all the other gods they pretended to be. But Earth was not dead, and the Guardian was not a god. He was something worse than that. The warning beacons were still down. No one in the fleet noticed the geothermal energy surge in South America. No one witnessed the launch of the first orbital drone, hiding stealth technology a millennium ahead of its time. No one heard the ancient war sirens blaring beneath the ocean floor. But that would soon be the case. The Guardian stood in the ruined vault, naked but alive. He reached for a case engraved with the old symbol of Earth Command, a broken eagle with flames in its wings. Inside was a suit of armor forged with the blood of 100 engineers. He stepped into each one, a clang of metal and a hiss pushing the past back into place. He was a man, he was a weapon, and he was awake. The Guardian stepped from the vault to a world that bore little resemblance to the Earth he once knew. Skyscraper-tall trees towered over the ruins of a city. Nature had consumed everything humans had built. Skulls lay half-buried in moss, and the concrete roads cracked like broken bones. Yet amid this rugged beauty, a cold silence somehow hung in the air. There were no voices or laughter, only the sounds of the wind and ghosts. He stopped at the edge of a collapsed overpass and scanned the distant skyline of what had once been Bogota. Vines wrapped around skeletal skyscrapers, drones, and old models of the Earth, some rusted into statues, dangling lifelessly from tangled cables. Even the air felt different, somehow thin, as if the planet itself had not fully forgiven them for what they had done. The warden, an armored AI, clicked quietly in his ear. "We've detected multiple heat signals underground. They're not human, and the movement patterns don't match those of Earth's fauna." The Guardian narrowed his eyes. It could be a probe sent by the approaching fleet. Analysis suggests they're here to confirm extinction. Well, let's disappoint them. He crouched, dust rising from the concrete on impact. In an instant, he disappeared into the jungle that shrouded the city, moving like a shadow through the branches and rust. With every step, something old and hidden awakened. Deep beneath the abandoned subway station, 3 alien scouts moved silently. Their exoskeletons hissed softly with each step. Their long limbs emitted a pulsating blue light, scanning their surroundings. They weren't soldiers. They didn't need to be soldiers. The Earth was supposed to be dead. Then something flickered. One of the scouts turned suddenly. An energy signature was detected. A carbon fusion source. Impossible. Terran technology couldn't be activated. Before the others could react, something exploded from the sky. There was a silence of metal and fury. The Guardian landed hard, the blade piercing his spine before the first scout could scream. The second raised his plasma rifle, but it was too late. A blast of kinetic energy shot from the Guardian's left arm, shattering the monster's chest. The third tried to run, but he didn't get far. After a few seconds, the monster lay motionless on the concrete, black blood spilling into the cracks. 3 men down, the warden confirmed calmly. "More will come, you know it." The Guardian knelt beside one of the bodies. He pried open the helmet to reveal the distorted face of a Daryl, an insectoid species that had served on the Council's execution squads in the days of Earth's doom. He remembered them well. They burned New Delhi, destroyed London, and smiled while the Earth screamed. "They remember us as monsters," he said quietly. The warden replied coldly and reminded them why. Returning to the RX-7, the Council Admiral leaned forward in his chair. He lost contact with the 3 scouts. The young officer next to him blinked. "System malfunction number, something active down there, something old." The other officer, pale and trembling, whispered something no one wanted to say. "What if it was them?" The Admiral chuckled. "No, humanity is gone." But as soon as he said it, warning lights began flashing. A coded, ancient, unmistakably human transmission came through the ship systems. Distorted words flashed by like static. Then, through the static, a low, hollow, passionate voice said, "You've returned." "I shouldn't have done that." The Admiral rose slowly to his feet, his face pale. "What is it?" another voice replied. "This time it's coming from the ship's AI, cold, robotic, and sure." A Guardian-class counter-unit was detected. Earth defense protocols were reactivated. The Admiral turned to his crew, full alert. "Launch all drones. Scramble fighter jets. If we have even one left, we'll burn the Earth again." But this time the Earth was ready, and it had a name. Rain began to fall on the crumbling city of Bogota. Heavy, dark rain like the sky was bleeding. The Guardian stood atop an old communications tower, watching as streaks of silver light burned through the air. Drop pods, thousands of them. Council shock troops descended from orbit like a hail of fire. They weren't waiting to make sure Earth was dead anymore. They were coming to keep it dead, the warden said in a crisp, calm voice. 17 ships entered low orbit. An estimated 2,000 troops were being deployed in stages. Their primary objective was to secure the planet's core and eliminate any resistance. Resistance? Guardian muttered. They think there are more of us out there. The warden paused. Maybe. Guardian turned around. Explain, multiple dormant facilities have been identified around the world. Cryopods, weapons depots, deep bunkers sealed since the collapse. Some are showing signs of life. Others may be survivors. A faint glimmer of hope had lit up, then quickly vanished. He remembered the last day clearly, screams echoing across continents. His family reduced to ashes. Earth's last soldiers torn apart by an orbital strike while the Council watched from above. He was frozen, not as a soldier, but as a contingency plan. A nightmare trapped in a box. But maybe, just for a moment, he wasn't alone. Burn the image into his eyes. Priority will be given to those closest to activation. Understood. He looked up into the smoking sky. The Council pods had crashed into the ground miles away, sending up towers of fire. Trees were on fire and birds were scattering into the night sky. War had returned to Earth once again. So began the vengeance. On the outskirts of the Amazon basin, the Council's first shock force deployed into the jungle. 6 squads, each armed with pulse weapons and neural drones. Their commander was Crevarian Commander Shaz, who stepped into the mossy ground with a look of disdain. "This world is filthy," he sneered. "Let us finish what the stars started." The color of his helmet flickered for a moment. There was a brief static interference, a sound like a heartbeat. He waved it away. "Send out a search party. If you see anything moving here, kill them." They were unaware that they were being watched. Among the towering trees, the Guardian moved like a ghost. His armor adapted to his surroundings, blending in with the bark and leaves. Every breath was in sync with the rhythm of the forest, calm, focused, and deadly. The warden's voice boomed in my ear. Target identified. High-ranking SHAS commanders had orchestrated orbital strikes on Southeast Asia and publicly executed civilians who surrendered. No war crimes trials had been held. "Understood," the Guardian growled. "I will die first." A second later, chaos erupted. A blast of energy shot from the tree branch, sending 2 soldiers flying before they had a chance to react. The others turned in confusion, but a shadow moved swiftly and silently between them. One of them was dragged into the undergrowth. Another body was crushed by a tree. Shaz spun around, shouting orders, but the jungle drowned out his voice. A Guardian appeared, covered in ash and blood. "Greetings, Commander." Shaz raised his rifle and fired. The arrow bounced off the Guardian's armor like water bouncing off stone. He tried to run, but a spear of pure plasma pierced his back. The Guardian stepped forward, slowly pulled the spear out, and looked him in the eye. "This is for Manila," he said, twisting. Shaz died without a scream. The warden spoke again. The transmission was encrypted. "Origin Earth Facility, New Zealand Sector." Guardian gasped. "Are there any survivors?" he asked. "Perhaps." A startup signal, traces of the old Terran military. They were waking up. He turned his gaze to the stars above, where Council ships circled like vultures. "You wanted the last war," he whispered. "You will have it." His armor groaned, weapons reloaded, and the long, silent Earth began to rumble again. This New Zealand facility was never meant to be discovered. Buried beneath the southern Alps, shrouded in tectonic distortion, ice, and silence, it hadn't transmitted a signal for centuries since its last power outage. But now, for the first time in 412 years, a signal has returned. Antique lamps flickered in the icy hallways. The floor shook slightly as geothermal energy flowed through dormant systems. Robotic arms moved in the darkness, brushing dust off control panels. Hissing and steam rose from the freezers, and forgotten names glowed faintly on the monitors. The Guardian stood before the reinforced entrance. Snow whirled around him like angry spirits. His armor was steaming from his climb up the mountainside. He pressed his hands against the console. The guard began decoding. The biometric lock was approved. The facility was called Arc 9. Last recorded on March 4th, 2213. Population, 47, mostly military, identities unknown. The door slid open with a long metallic clang. Inside was cold and silent, almost peaceful. The Guardian walked slowly down the central corridor, footsteps echoing off steel and frost. There were rows of freezing chambers along the walls. He walked to the nearest one and wiped the frost away. A woman stood there, pale and motionless, her eyes closed. Major Issa Tran. He recognized her. Commander of the Pacific Resistance, the last of the group to go into hiding before the Council glassed Tokyo. She fought to the end, never giving in, never giving in. I asked for her vital signs. The guard confirmed she was stable. Minimal brain degradation. The pod's integrity was maintained. Resuscitation was possible. The guard nodded. Startup sequence began. The pod hissed, the light turned orange, and the cryogenics drained from the systems. Isla's heart began to pound. Her eyelids trembled. He stood silently watching her rise from the dead. Then her eyes suddenly flew open and she screamed. Her mind raced in panic. Her hands slammed against the pod wall, her body shaking, her lungs gasping for air. She struggled, finally focusing on the figure before her. Gradually, recognition dawned on her. "Zero," she said in a husky, dry, staccato voice. "Is that really you?" "Yes," he said gently. "Are you okay?" She cleared her throat, getting up. "Are you okay on Earth? Are you sane?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he helped her out of the pod, her legs barely supporting her weight. "Anyone else?" she asked. 47, you're the first," the guard called out. "Commencing mass resuscitation. Estimated time, 5 minutes. Stand by." Issa regained her composure and looked around the room at the still sleeping people. "They wouldn't wake unless the council returned," the Guardian said, his face clouding. "This time we're not just watching," he continued. "They're here. We've already killed 2 scouts and a commander. You know something's up." Aya clenched her fists. "Now we'll show you the might of Earth." Slowly, one by one, the pods began to open. Soldiers, engineers, tacticians, the ghosts of humanity's last defense. They emerged into the cold air with wild eyes and vivid memories. Some cried, some vomited, some knelt and prayed. The Guardian stood silently in their midst. "You are all that remain," he said. "The world has changed, but the enemy has not. The Council fleet is in orbit. Their footprints are in our soil. They thought the Earth would remain buried. They thought we would forget." Aya stepped next to him, her voice growing stronger. "We do not forget. We endure, and now we fight." Someone in the crowd shouted. "What do we fight with?" "Sticks and memories." The Guardian raised his hand. The holograms suddenly came to life, blueprints, armory, and satellite weapons orbiting above, cloaked and waiting. "You have me," he said. "And you have a vendetta," the warden's voice interrupted. "Warning, orbital strike signature detected. The Council is targeting this facility." Aya looked around. "We have only just awakened." "They want to kill us before they know how," the Guardian replied. He turned to the crowd. "You have 3 minutes to prepare, then we'll go down." And flames began to rain down again above. The first explosion occurred just outside the facility, a beam of white-hot plasma turning the mountainside into lava. The ground gave way and ice cracked like thunder. The once quiet mountains were thrown into chaos. Alarms rang out within Arc 9. Issa was already on the move, hurling weapons from an unlocked safe at soldiers who had only been awake for 2 minutes. Guardians stormed through the chaos, adjusting kinetic rifles, activating shield drones, and shouting orders as if by muscle memory. Defense protocols initiated, the warden ordered. automated turrets deployed at entrance, shield generators at 76% charge, structural collapse imminent within 7 minutes. Protect the outer wall, the Guardian shouted. Retreat in stages. It hit closer this time. The blast blew the 3 newly awakened members back. A soldier cried out, clutching his broken leg. Aya grabbed him and dragged him into cover, quickly tossing him a medical pack. Tell them there's a tunnel here, she told the Guardian. This is Earth. Always dig deep. He slammed his fist on the emergency console. A section of the main chamber floor split open, revealing a spiraling metal staircase leading into the darkness. An old escape tunnel, forgotten by time and undetected by the Council's scans. Everyone move, Aya ordered. Leave nothing behind, we are ghosts now. The Guardian remained behind as the last soldier descended. He activated the console's final failsafe. It would explode in 90 seconds, the warden confirmed. He glanced around once more at the place that had frozen Earth's hope, then followed them into the darkness, where the survivors marched beneath the mountains, through dank tunnels dug by the old resistance. The walls were covered with jumbled markings, directions, warnings, and ancient codes frantically carved by dead hands. The Guardian stepped forward silently, Aya breathing heavily beside him. They had to find the base and regroup. They couldn't keep so many bodies underground for long. I know the place, he said, but it's a long way from here and we won't get back easily. Where is it? Atlantica. She stopped. You're insane. That place was a myth even before the fall. He turned to look at her. It's not a myth. I made it. High above the terrain, in the hands of the Council's ship Veals, Admiral Thoros studied the scorched satellite imagery of Arc 9. His lip curled in satisfaction. The facility was destroyed. No life signs remained. The lieutenant shifted uneasily. What if they fled underground? Their human guardian, he was identified, Thoros sneered, a relic. One soldier wouldn't matter. But as he spoke, another officer, pale with panic, rushed onto the bridge. Sir, 4 outposts have lost power. Our drone forces are wiped out. We're losing troops in the Amazon and Sahara sectors. This is escalating. This is impossible, Tolos raged. We've wiped them out. We've burned them to the ground. Yes, sir, the officer stammered. But they are fighting as if they remember. Down the tunnel, the survivors finally reached a massive steel door. It was sealed with multiple layers of ancient AI locks, a symbol of a lost era. The Guardian placed a palm on their leader. The warden's voice rang out, "Access granted. Welcome back." With a heavy groan, the door slid open to reveal a vast chamber glowing with blue light, rows of dormant mechs, armored suits, cryoweapons, and nameless coffins. Aya stepped forward, eyes wide. "What is this?" the Guardian answered quietly. "The Ark's true insurance policy, the claws of humanity hidden away for just such an hour." She walked over to one of the coffins and wiped the frost off. Inside lay another soldier, dozens, perhaps hundreds. "How many?" she whispered. 2,000, he said. Aya's voice trailed off. "They might be able to turn the tide." "They will," he replied, "but only if we wake them in time." She turned to him and we stopped running. "We will rise," he nodded. "We will tell the stars," he said in a low, fiery voice, "that the earth has awakened." The hangar hummed with a forgotten power. Blue light shimmered over the sleeping giants. Tank-sized exosuits stood in silent guard. Guardians walked among them with quiet reverence. Each one bore a name, not a serial number, but a name. Soldiers who had volunteered to become more than human, to become Earth's avengers when the stars turned against it. Ara watched him activate the first suit. "You built all of these?" she asked. "I buried them all," he answered. After the collapse, when the Council's extermination forces swept through the last stronghold, I realized we couldn't win head-on. So we went underground, we set traps, we awakened ghosts, we forged weapons. Not for then, but for now, he turned to her. The glow of the awakened machines lit up his armor. This wasn't about survival. It was about bidding our time. She nodded. Now the wait was over. The warden's voice echoed throughout the room. Reanimation protocols activated. Cryo units activated. The entire battalion was scheduled to deploy in 16 hours. Too long, the Guardian muttered. The council wouldn't allow it. Aya connected the old satellite link. There was static, but something shifted beyond it. A faint signal, a distorted pattern. Earth's old orbital network flickered like a ghost in the dark. She tapped one of the dormant nodes. Something, she whispered, a signal from Kenya. The resistance was coded but active. The Guardian's eyes narrowed. Impossible, she looked at him. Or maybe not. Maybe we're not alone anymore. Halfway around the world in the ruins of Nairobi, Commander Talon and Kuru watched a flickering map displayed by a recovered uplink. The drone showed a city council patrol patrolling what had once been the city center. Scrap from old AIs littered the streets, and mutated plants ate away at the concrete. But deep in the catacombs, beneath a marketplace where no trade had been made in 400 years, the Talonians were preparing for war. He stared at a pulsating red dot on the map. A signal on military-grade pre-fall frequencies beamed from Earth. He turned to his lieutenant. Message back in 5 words. What do you want to say? Talon smiled. Earth is alive. The resistance is breathing. We are ready. On Atlantica, Aya received the message with trembling hands. She looked up at her guardian. They are alive. They'd been fighting. He exhaled deeply. Now it began. They stood together before the awakened army. The suits began to activate. Light spread across the floor. Men and women in cryogenic units stirred, their muscles twitching. The truth was downloaded into their minds, filled with ash and blood. What had happened, what was about to happen, and what they had to do. The Guardian raised his plasma rifle and turned to the nearest suit. He climbed into the suit, and with a thud, the armor sealed around him. Blue lines pulsed on the plates. He moved slowly, then accelerated as if he had never stopped. Warden, he said. Broadcast transmission across all frequencies on Earth. Civilian, military, resistance, dormant, AI, all must listen. Channel open. He stepped forward. His voice was steel and thunder. This is the Guardian of Earth. If you can hear this, you are not alone. The Council is back. They seek to finish what they started. But we are not shattered. We are not buried. We are the last of the last. And we will not forget. If you have fire in your blood, weapons in your hands, and rage in your hearts, rise up. This is our world. If they stepped in, it would be time to bleed forever. The message was finished. Across the planet, in bunkers and jungles, ruins and data nodes, people heard and responded. The hangar rumbled with an energy A hadn't felt in years, raw, mounting, and terrifying in its promise. The Guardian stood among ancient war machines, their armor worn, their cores shining for the first time in centuries. For generations, this land had been dust and silence. Now it was like a storm ripping the heavens apart. These were no mere machines. These were the remnants of Earth's rage, suits that had once turned the tide of wars lost to history, weapons once deemed too brutal, too uncontrollable. Now they were Earth's last hope. 76 Titan suits in action, the warden confirmed, his voice echoing off the steel walls. Cryoresuscitation of the battalion's troops was underway. The first wave of soldiers would regain movement within 30 minutes. The Guardian adjusted the gauntlet of one of the Titans, whispering something Isla couldn't hear. It could have been a name or a memory. Then he turned to her, his visor darkened, revealing his face beneath the cracked armor. They said we were extinct, he said quietly, but to humanity, extinction is just another word for rest. Aya nodded through gritted teeth. Then let's wake the others. She approached one of the coffins and wiped the frost from the glass. Inside lay a woman with streaks of silver hair lying motionless. Her name was inscribed above it, Colonel Jebeki. Aya remembered her, a legend from the Pacific Siege. She had once held off a force of Council dread troopers with just a knife and a wound in the shoulder. She lay dead, but her vital signs were stable. "We'll restore her," Warden said, "but it will take time. It will take 16 hours to revive and rearm all the fighting men. We don't have 16 hours, Guardian bellowed. Council orbital observations had already begun triangulating radiation on the surface. "They'll track us here. Then we'll buy ourselves some time," Aya said. "We'll fight with what we have." She tapped an old interface on the wall. It was flickering, glitchy, barely alive. But it pulsed with something familiar, Earth's old satellite uplink. She had wiped out every global relay station the Resistance had buried before the fall. Most were gone, others were simply silent. But then she heard something, a faint but clear signal, a military frequency buried in Council codes. "Kenya," she murmured. "Someone is transmitting through the ruins." The Guardian leaned over her shoulder. "Someone clever is using the enemy's distortion field to piggyback a message." She deciphered it slowly with trembling fingers. It wasn't long, just 5 words. "Earth is alive. The Resistance is breathing. We're ready." Aya exhaled as if she had been holding her breath for years. "They never stopped fighting," she whispered. "Still outside," the Warden confirmed in a high-pitched voice. "Source, Nairobi, Resistance active, estimated strength 4070, Commander Tarin Inur." "Tarin," the Guardian said, surprised. "He should be dead, but he's not," Isla replied. Then he called. Far away, beneath Nairobi's crumbling skyline, Commander Talon and Kuru stared at a crude holographic map projected from a salvaged uplink. Drones painted a grim picture. Council patrols slithered across what had once been sacred ground, their armor gleaming like parasites. What little of his people remained hid in the mines and collapsed catacombs of the old world sewers. Talon looked up as his lieutenant, a boy no older than 20, came trotting into the room. "There's an answer," the boy said. Talon raised his eyebrows. "Who is it?" The boy grinned. "Atlantica," the name rang like thunder. "No one has spoken that name in 400 years, Talon whispered. The boy nodded. "Well, there's an answer. It was short." He began to play. A deep, metallic, cold, powerful voice drowned out the background noise. "These are the Guardians of Earth." The rest of the words needed no repeating. Talon rose slowly to his feet. His wounds and bones ached, but his smile burned brightly. "Tell them we are on our way." Back on Atlantica, Isla stood beside the Guardians facing the awakened soldiers. One by one, the cryopods hissed open. Men and women coughed, gasped, and blinked at the intense light. They had all faced death centuries ago, and now they were being reborn for a new battle. "This is our army," Aya said, her eyes shining. "And we are not alone." The Guardian nodded. "It's time," he said. "Broadcast on all channels. Activate the Warden System's command." In an instant, his voice echoed across the earth. "This is the Guardian of Earth. If you hear these words, you are not alone. The Council has returned, and they intend to finish what they started. But we are not broken. We are not buried. We are the last of the last, and we will not forget. If you have fire in your blood, weapons in your hands, and rage in your hearts, rise up. This is our world. Now is the time for them to step foot on this ground and bleed forever." And somewhere far above, the Council fleet came to a halt as Earth whispered back, "Come to our aid." A storm rose from Earth like a howl of rage. In low orbit, the Council observation fleet drifted silently, unaware of the ancient fury swirling below them. Scout ships scanned the continent, detecting what appeared to be geothermal surges and tectonic anomalies. They detected the heat, but not the core. They saw radiation, but not rage. Humanity had grown arrogant, convinced it was irreparably destroyed. But now the voice of Earth was war, and the sky was burning. From the depths of Atlantica, a massive electromagnetic pulse erupted into the sky. Controlled chaos wrapped in ancient technology. Council drones instantly went offline in the air, their circuits frying before they could scream. One of the orbital defense cruisers shook, lights flashing, alarms blaring, and systems shutting down without warning. "What's going on down there?" yelled Commander Rizzle aboard the Vernaxis, the largest of the orbital fleet. The science officer reported that the local energy signature was increasing exponentially. But this wasn't natural. It was targeted, an attack from Earth, a signal from something buried beneath the planet. Rizal growled. "Send them all, every hunter in the atmosphere." I wanted to crush the charge, but it was too late. Guardian led the first charge. Clad in a Titan suit covered in plasma-reactive plates, he shot out of the Earth's interior and into the sky, his voice ringing with centuries of vengeance. Others followed. 20, then 50. And then the full force of his revived battalion. Issa was right behind him, piloting a sleek skirmisher mech with a shoulder-mounted rail cannon. Beside her flew 2 drones encoded with the Warden's AI. They were used as autonomous sabotage weapons. The resistance had strengthened while it slumbered. Above them, streaks of fire streaked the sky, and the Council's hunter ships swooped down like vultures. The old battleships still held power, their energy weapons capable of destroying cities. But they had never faced an enemy like this before, one with nothing to lose. The Guardian locked on to its first target, a heavy scout cruiser, and activated its suit's boosters. It slammed into the ship's hull with a meteorite-like force, metal screaming as armor pierced the upper atmosphere. Enemy soldiers ran inside. The Guardian didn't hesitate. Plasma blades ignited along his arms, slicing through the hull like paper. Inside, the Council soldiers had no time to take aim as the Guardian sliced through them with a whirlwind of heat and fury. Issa's men swooped in behind him, firing twin-rail shots at the second ship's exposed engines. It spun in the air and crashed into the sea in a billowing cloud of flame. In Nairobi, Commander Taran's forces charged into the open. Armed with ancient pulse rifles and reverse-engineered alien technology, they joined forces with resistance groups in Egypt, Tanzania, and the Congo. Those awakened to the Guardian's call, sparking skirmishes that raged across the African continent like wildfire. One by one, cracks appeared in the Council's grip. Through the haze of fire and debris, the Guardian called out to Warden. "What's the status of the orbital disruptor?" "It's at 83% charge," Warden replied. 3 minutes until atmospheric detonation. Well, we'll hold them off." The Council's aircraft carrier loomed overhead. They were massive, lumbering, and well-armed. One opened fire, plasma bursts blasting through the sky and destroying sections of the ground. Trees vanished, buildings melted, and dozens of humanoid mechs vanished into the darkness. But the Guardian was undaunted. He activated the emergency booster and Strelia's main cannon, firing a plasma anchor that buried itself deep in the mech's belly. With a roar, he spun around and ripped a hole straight through the engine core. Inside, Council engineers tried to overload the core before he could reach it, but failed. He ejected from the stern, leaving a bomb in his wake. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash over the Pacific Ocean. Back in orbit, Commander Leskill watched in disbelief. "One of our carriers has been destroyed," he whispered. The officer, pale with fear, nodded. "And it was humans, not an enemy from another star." "No," Leskill whispered. "Not humans, monsters playing dead." and then the disruptor fired. From deep within Atlantica, an ancient weapon hidden since the end of the fall unleashed its payload. It wasn't a missile, not a missile in the traditional sense. A concentrated graviton pulse designed to disrupt the laws of physics in a localized area. Orbits around the planet bent, ships tilted, electronics went dead, and in the space of 7 seconds, over a third of the Council fleet lost power and began to spiral toward the world they once controlled. On the ground, Aya stood next to the Guardian on the cliff of a collapsed ridge, watching as the Council ship crashed through the clouds. She turned to him. "We're winning." He didn't smile, not yet. This was only first blood. He looked up at the dark sky. The Council would send more fleets. This was a scouting fleet. The real armada was waiting beyond Mars. She gritted her teeth, and we would attack them before they got here. He finally nodded. Their next destination, the stars. They left Earth in silence, but their fury reverberated across the stars. The Guardian stood aboard the Revenant, an ancient human warship that hadn't seen the void in 4 centuries. Dug from the crust of the Andes, repaired with hybrid technology salvaged from the remains of the fallen Council, reforged in the fires of purpose. It was no ordinary ship. It was a ship made of the metal of Earth's vengeance. Around it formed a loose fleet of dozens of modified Council cruisers, commandeered during the orbital battles. There was no grace to them. There were few of them, but they carried warriors the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. Men who had tasted defeat and had it embedded in steel. Resistance fighters, ancient soldiers, and the awakened ghosts of war, and the Guardian to lead them all. The Warden's voice echoed across the command deck. Orbit locked. Destination, the Council's high throne. ETA, 16 hours. Aya adjusted the neural interface on her arm. Then she leaned against the cold bulkhead. Victory or annihilation, 16 hours. The Guardian said nothing. He stared into the abyss at the faint light that marked the center of Council space. Isla crossed the floor, her voice quiet. "You don't have to do this. You can just disappear. You can hide and rebuild." He looked at her, eyes hardened by centuries of war. "And they will rebuild. And they will come again. They will not stop until the throne they worship is reduced to ashes." She nodded. "That will be the end of it." The throne of the High Council orbited the gas giant Eridison, surrounded by thousands of warships. The vast structure could be seen from the planet's surface. It was less a station and more a city forged with gold and arrogance. This is where the great tribunal once passed judgment, passed sentence, ordered war, and declared species like humankind inferior. Now that place trembles as Revenant silently emerges with one final message. We are the forgotten ones. We are the fire. This is humanity's judgment. And so Earth was assaulted. The Wardens launched the first wave. Hacked Council drones, now under human control, slipped through defenses and exploded at shield welds. Mech units in drop pods followed, slamming into the station's surface like hammers of God. Resistance fighters emerged, armed with fusion blades, quantum disruptors, and pure human rage. Issa led an infiltration team behind the throne. Their goal, to neutralize the central power forces and cut the shield, exposing the sanctum of the Council chambers. It would not be easy. The Council guards, their elite and reinforced, engaged them with precision strikes. They were faster, cleaner, more advanced. But they were not prepared for Aya's brutality, the raw chaos of human brawlers who had survived the genocide. She disemboweled one with a plasma spike, shot another as she sprinted, and shoved a detonator in yet another's mouth before kicking him down the hallway. "You weirdos talk of order," she snarled. "But Earth taught me how to defeat a god." Meanwhile, in orbit, Guardians, clad in Titan-class void suits with enhanced wormhole-jumping capabilities, overran cruiser after cruiser. He flew between ships in the blink of an eye, appearing on the command deck and slicing through the crew on the bridge. His armor was red-hot from the constant fighting, but he charged forward and no one could stop him. In the council chamber, the members of the Grand Tribunal were in a panic. 11 robed figures, some over 600 years old, pulsed with genetic enhancement and self-righteousness. "This can't be," one of them muttered. They were supposed to be extinct. A heavy thud crashed the chamber door. The Guardian stepped inside, his armor smoking and his blade scraping along the floor. "We are asleep, not gone," he said. One of the tribunes raised a hand to call for the guards, but before he could speak, a rail bullet ripped through his skull. Issa came in behind the Guardians, covered in blood and grinning. "This day ends your empire," she said. The tribunal tried to flee. They shouted orders, summoned drones, and activated security systems. But it didn't matter. The humans hadn't come to negotiate. They had come to erase the past. The Guardian walked towards the central disk, where the Council's symbol shone. He shattered it with one blow. The Warden activated the final protocol. Explosives detonated deep within the station's core. The Revenant in orbit opened a wormhole to Earth. Isla and the Guardian ran. They leaped onto the last evacuation ship, and the Council throne was enveloped in light. A supernova of metal and fire engulfed the greatest symbol of alien power. The Council vanished not with a scream, but with the silence Earth had denied it for centuries. Later back on Earth, the skies were clear. Humanity had won, not through negotiation or mercy, but by becoming what the galaxy feared, fanged survivors. Issa stood on the steps of the ruins of an old city being rebuilt. Children ran past her. Life had returned. The Guardian stood beside her, silent as always. "Have you ever thought you've gone too far?" she asked. He stared at the stars. "Number." "They started the fire," he said. "We finally ended it."